So I think that everyone here, or probably everyone here, supports the goal of worldwide nuclear disarmament, in line with the 1970 Non-Proliferation Treaty that requires all the nuclear states to disarm, and in line with the 2021 Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons that similarly requires total abolition. I think that this is something that is very difficult in one way, and in another way, very easy. The difficult part, in my view, is the spiritual or moral part. We know that in order to get this done, we probably need to be able to hear the voices of a wide citizenry. And especially in the United States, the wide citizenry seems to be asleep, to have forgotten that we have nuclear weapons, or to have forgotten that they have responsibility for requiring that we get rid of these weapons. Why is the soul of the United States citizenry so silent, so civically damaged? That's probably a topic for another day, but I think a short answer to that is that it's circular, that the very existence of nuclear weapons for 70 years has disenfranchised the citizenry, has infantilized the citizenry, so that they've forgotten their responsibilities and think that when war is beginning to break out, our only responsibility is to watch it unfold on television. Well, the difficult part for all of us is to be awakening our fellow citizens and fellow residents to speak out on this issue. The easy part is the subject of my lecture for the next couple of minutes. And the easy part is physically dismantling the nuclear arsenal. It's often said that once nuclear weapons are made, they can't be unmade, but that's completely untrue. One philosopher of peace in Britain, for example, John Ainsley, studied the matter and concluded with a set of timetables to which our own military agrees. He said that in the UK, it would overall take between 2 and 4 years to completely dismantle the nuclear weapons, but that dismantling the triggers, the different parts of that dismantling activity would take different amounts of time, and dismantling the nuclear triggers could be done in a number of hours. You can see that once the nuclear triggers are dismantled in a number of hours, the whole arsenal is on its way to being wholly disabled, since a trigger is the thing that actualizes the use of the weapon. And without the trigger, it can't carry out the thing that it was made for. So despite the fact that a trigger compared to a nuclear submarine appears to be a small part of the arsenal, it actually has a key role. I turn to the United States. What is the nuclear trigger in the vast United States arsenal? We know the US and Russia together own over 93% of the weapons. I believe strongly that the nuclear trigger in the case of the US architecture is the presidential first use policy. And that if we dismantle that, we will have gone a very long way towards disabling the whole arsenal. The presidential first use policy, as you know, enables a single man to launch a nuclear missile without any second voice, not from Congress, not from his cabinet, not from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, not from the military, not from anyone. And furthermore, it not only releases all restrictions, but all these other parts of the architecture practice 24/7 to make sure that there's no friction that will be introduced once the president issues his launch, that it will be carried out like with well-oiled wheels. Furthermore, and importantly, by having first use, it means that there's no restriction even arising from the world. The other country need not have done anything to injure us. The other country need not have invaded us. The other country need not have launched a missile at us. First use means we can launch that weapon without any motive for doing so. And if that seems too improbable to ever come about, we should recognize that in most of the cases where a US president has contemplated first use, contemplated using a nuclear weapon, it's been a first use situation, that is, where no other country has done anything against us. So this is a reminder that if we are able to eliminate first use, we will have eliminated the trigger, and that by doing so, we will have gone a long way towards eliminating the nuclear arsenal, because I believe, and it would take more time to argue this fully, that by eliminating it, we essentially introduce a structural fracture all the way down the line in our nuclear arsenal. How has that come about? Well, first of all, if we agree to no first use and every other country agrees to no first use, there can't even be second use, since somebody's got to have done first use before any country can use second use. And I think there's a good chance that other countries can be persuaded to disavow first use. Some countries already have. China gave up first use in 1964 and has repeatedly stated that position. India gave up first use in 2003. North Korea has at least once stated that it is willing to give up first use. Russia had given up first use throughout the 80s and only took it back because the United States refused to do so. As recently as 2018, Putin has said he would only use it to retaliate. He's also said other things that make that uncertain. But at any rate, it shows that it's within the horizon of possibility that countries can all be persuaded to give up first use. And if that happens, there is no second use. Second of all, second use is difficult. The reason our military and our civic people in charge of nuclear weapons have a first use policy is because second use is hard and it's incoherent. Whereas first use gives our country obscenely elbow room to do what it wants to do. Second use is very confusing. It's very confusing even to know when missiles are coming in or to who has sent them. Just think of 9/11, when our Pentagon not only failed to defend the United States, but spectacularly failed to protect its own building. And Flight 77 that crashed into the Pentagon had been known to be a terrorist coming in for 55 minutes. So they had a large amount of time and were not able to deal with it. Again, if we think of the Iraq war, we went to war against Iraq because of 9/11, and yet 15 of our 18 hijackers had been from Saudi Arabia. So the incoherence of how you respond once you're under attack is well known and is a big problem for any kind of arsenal, but especially for a nuclear arsenal.
Elaine, 1 minute left.
Okay, so because the time is out, I'll just say that this is something we need to talk about, the way in which first use will go on to weaken the whole nuclear arsenal and make us take a big step forward. Since 2016, we have at least become aware that we have presidential sole authority. We see it in the newspapers all the time. It was not there prior to 2016. So it's come to be understood. We have legislation in Congress, 2 different bills prohibiting first use. We have a president who, as we know, in the lead up to his presidency, said he disliked first use. It's a chance to do this. And I think the effects of doing it will be very great. Thank you.